Your UNLV football team falls to the Ohio Bobcats 17-10 in their bowl game in Frisco, Texas. A disappointing end to a season that saw a UNLV team reach 10 wins, yet show really annoying flaws. Let's break it down. This is the Let's Run podcast. Everybody, welcome to the show today. Grateful to have you. Be here a part of the Let's Run podcast as we come to the close of the UNLV football season. A UNLV falls as they were about 6.5 point favorites to the Ohio Bobcats, who win their seventh straight bowl game. UNLV loses 17-10 in this one. Taking a look at the stats in this one, UNLV was led by, I guess, let me pull up the stats. This is a sucky loss, guys. This really sucked. UNLV, Anthony Calandria goes 19 of 30, 184 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interceptions. It was Anthony Calandria's worst game of the season by a lot. A lot of that had to do with the Ohio defense. And it was a bummer of a game for Anthony Calandria, who had an awesome season, who was the deserving Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year. Tough for him to go out this way this season. I expect him to be back next season alongside Dan Mullen, and I expect him to be awesome next season. But this was easily his worst game as a member of the UNLV football team. Jet Thomas had 51 yards on the ground for 11 carries. And yet there are still people that would argue that this game had good play calling from UNLV. This is a dumb take. You can't. UNLV only rushed for, only had 11 carries. And it's not like, there's a difference. It's not like, Kevon Lee and Caden McGee and Jalen Glover were getting a ton of carries. And that's why Jet Thomas only had 11 carries. They had 11 carries because they were trying to throw the ball, even though Ohio came into this season as the 123rd ranked rushing defense, one of the worst rushing defenses in America, and UNLV prioritized throwing the ball over rushing the ball. The play calling was terrible tonight. Don't let anybody fool you. Corey Dennis had a terrible game. So did Anthony Calandria. But the play calling wasn't good. Sorry, guys. It just wasn't. And I think that UNLV's approach to the rushing attack is evidence of that. If your response is, they were down for a lot of this game. I mean, it was a one-score game for a lot of it. 6-0. It's not. They were not so far down that running the ball was out of the question. And so I thought a pathetic showing from the UNLV offensive staff tonight, the UNLV offensive team as a whole. Jaden Bradley had a decent game, 4 receptions, 62 yards, 23 was a long. Jojo Earl with a bunch of touches. Nice to see him get some playing time. Some plays. The tight ends had an okay game. Trey O'Meara had a terrible drop. There was a couple of really bad drops, but one especially egregious one by Trey O'Meara that would have resulted in a touchdown. You saw several times that UNLV was in the red zone. I think there were 3 times UNLV was in the red zone. 2 of them were fumbles / interceptions. Just a horrific performance from the UNLV offense. On defense, UNLV, I thought. Did the defense do enough to win this game? Absolutely. They held Ohio to 17 points. Ohio had been an okay offense for a lot of this season. But it's just when you put it in the perspective of that Ohio, didn't have their head coach and was in the middle of a national controversy over a coach, who had been sleeping with undergraduate students and drinking alcohol in his office. Getting outcoached and outplayed in this game, I think is pretty embarrassing for UNLV. I thought our Marcel McDuffie had a pretty good game. A couple of the linebackers played okay. But, looking at the team stats, ultimately, in terms of like rushing, Ohio got 4.5 yards per carry. I mean, UNLV's defense played fine. I still think schematically there were some issues with how they played, but it's hard to complain about giving up 17 points. This was really on the offense. Paul Gunther is not a good defensive coordinator, and hopefully he's not back as our defensive coordinator next season, not only because he's a bad defensive coordinator on the field, but I don't trust him to be a recruiter. And UNLV, it was pretty evident in this game that they've just got a lot of work to do in terms of recruiting players, especially on the defensive line, especially the linebacking core. Just every single position on the defense needs an upgrade. UNLV had really one, outside of McDuffie, I don't think any player on the UNLV defense you could categorize it as having a good year. Everybody was really up and down, made a ton of mistakes. McDuffie was really the only thing that was keeping that ship afloat. And UNLV's losing a lot of its best players on the defensive side of the ball next season. So, it's not like they're returning anybody. This wasn't a young defense. This was an old defense. And so UNLV is going to have to dive into the portal and make some massive upgrades on the defensive side of the ball, because it's not good enough. Again, it's not their fault they lost this game, despite having some kind of rough moments. I think UNLV's defense was absolutely fine. Really, it was the offense. I think that goes down to the play of Anthony Calandria and the play calling, both of which were abhorrent tonight, if you ask me. And I really like Anthony Calandria. I'm excited to have him back next season, if it is true that he is indeed coming back, which it seems like it is. But really disappointing. Let's go over some of your comments, guys. I wonder how much of a hit I wonder how much of the hit he took changed Calandria's game. Ohio was hitting hard. Yeah, Ohio played this game a lot more physically than UNLV. And, like Daryl says here, UNLV got bullied in the trenches again. Yeah, UNLV Ohio looked bigger, faster, stronger than UNLV. And a lot of that, I think, had to do more with just how hard Ohio was playing and how seriously they were taking this game. And I'm not saying that UNLV wasn't taking it seriously, but they weren't executing at a high enough level to really win, to pull this one out. Ohio was just, the attention to detail was better. It's not that UNLV's guys weren't trying; it's just that they weren't executing. And I think that is oftentimes kind of an interesting point to make in sports. It's not always about pure effort. A lot of times it's mental effort. It's not physical effort. It's not that the guys aren't out there running as hard as they can and trying to make tackles as good as they can. It's that they're just not executing mentally. And this defense, and honestly, this offense, despite the offense putting up very numbers for most of the season, in the games where they really needed times when UNLV wasn't playing a bad defense, their offense didn't always do very well, even when they were playing mediocre defenses. And I think that, well, yes, you can't call this season a failure at all. I mean, obviously winning 10 games is great. Playing for a Mountain West championship is awesome. But I think you can call it slightly disappointing. That B- grade that I've been harping on lately, people call me crazy for, but UNLV, look at this. UNLV was 2-4 against teams. They played 6 teams that made 8 bowl games. So they played 6 teams that weren't awful. You don't have to be a very good team to be a 6-6 team. You just have to be not awful. UNLV played 6 games against teams that were not awful, and they were 2-4 in those games. Both of the wins coming, the Hawaii game, which was easily the best performance of the season for the Rebels, and then the Utah State game that UNLV didn't deserve to win at all, but kind of pulled it out, because Utah State's kicker had crapped his pants. So this UNLV team, if this performance surprised you, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. They look back at week 0, their performance against Idaho State. Look at how they got bullied by Boise State, a Boise State team that was not even that good of a Boise State team this season. I don't think Boise State was world beaters this season. They were whatever. I mean, it was not a great Boise State team, and I think Boise State fans would agree with you, would agree in that setting. A New Mexico team that came in and out executed you to end a game, and that you gave up huge play after huge play against. And ultimately a Ohio team that played harder, played faster, played stronger, played more disciplined than you. And I guess we can talk about kind of what UNLV's priorities need to be. But UNLV was a 10-win team with an unbelievably easy schedule. I mean, this is one of the easiest schedules you're going to get. The one Power 4 team that UNLV played was, a team in UCLA that went on to lose at home to New Mexico 35-10 the following week. You played a Miami team that was, out their starting quarterback in that game that was struggling at the time. You played a pretty favorable conference schedule with your only real difficult game being at Boise State, which you lost. And I just think that, I think the depiction of UNLV as a paper tiger team was spot on all season. I thought so all season. And I predicted them to go 8-4, and they didn't go 8-4. They won 10 games. Good for them. They played like an 8-4 team all season. I think if you play this season 100 times, I don't know that we get to 10 wins. very many times. This was one of the better outcomes considering, the talent. Not that this team didn't have talent, but they just weren't executing at a high enough level considering the coaching. I think, Corey Dennis, he gets a B as our offensive coordinator, B minus. And Paul Guenther, hopefully he's no longer our defensive coordinator, but overall evaluating the season, we were talking about this in the Rebel chat that I'm in. But if you want to compare, what the 3 seasons of UNLV football being good, it's been 3 years in a row. The first season, obviously, we Jade Maeva 2 seasons ago, we hosted Boise State in the Mountain West Championship game. It's the first time we'd ever been a good football team ever in my memory. I mean, besides that 2013 team, which we were a 7-5 team that season, not really contenders in the Mountain West, but that season was a delightful surprise for UNLV fans. Last season, UNLV is a win away from the college football playoff. And then this season, UNLV was an undisciplined mess that had a lot of offensive talent, that was able to squeak out a bunch of games, but ultimately wasn't, just didn't quite have it. Just didn't quite have that execution level. And so I think of the 3 seasons of resurgent UNLV football, this was easily the least satisfying of all of them. And, Dan Mullen, he's the highest paid G5 coach. From what I'm pretty sure he's the highest paid G5 coach. I don't think there's any coach that approaches that $3.5 million level. And you had a favorable schedule. You won 10 games. It was the first season. You were replacing a whole bunch of players, lots of positive things to build on, but this team needs an overhaul. It's got some good pieces, but this team needs an overhaul because what they have, how they're executing, how they're playing, how they're coached, just isn't quite up to snuff right now. Let me play some of your guys' comments here. There's a lot of them. Let me just go through. Good Lord, that was abysmal to watch. Were we not prepared? Can we fire Guenther now? I don't know about Guenther. I don't expect him to be our DC next season, but I'm not sure about his status. UNLV was sloppy, I thought, defensively tonight. But at the same time, they did hold the team to 17 points. It was honestly one of their not one of their 4 worst off defensive performances of the season. So, tonight's not on Guenther, but the season as a whole, I think you can throw a lot of it on Guenther. And Guenther was not brought in to be our defensive coordinator. So, I mean, could I see Dan Mullen keeping him on the staff as a safeties coach? Sure, and I wouldn't even hate that, but UNLV clearly needs another adult voice that knows the college game, that recruits the college game. Paul Guenther's not it. Corey Dennis is not it. Dan Mullen's kind of trying to, in my opinion, get a team to be disciplined when he just doesn't have the voices and the coaches to kind of support him. And not all of that's his fault. I mean, the Zach Arnett situation from last offseason was a disaster. UNLV was supposed to have a decent defensive coordinator last season, and Zach Arnett kind of backed out halfway through the offseason. So, I guess we'll see. I hope we fire Guenther. I prefer him not to be on the staff at all, but I could live with it as long as we bring in an actual defensive coordinator. O-line looked terrible and asleep. Defense actually played fine. We should be able to score more than 17 points and win. Yeah, I mean, I honestly thought even with the play of Anthony Calandria being as bad as it was tonight, if UNLV played discipline, the play calling was better, and we just ran the ball, I think UNLV can win this game, even with how bad Anthony Calandria was. I just don't think UNLV had the right approach in this game. I mean, we were one of the worst first down teams in America. We constantly threw away first down with just wishful play calling is what I would call it. And I just don't think we emphasized the run enough. And now, look, part of the reason why they didn't run the ball a ton is because our offensive line was getting kind of dominated today. But at the same time, I would have loved to have seen more, screen passes, which we did see. I mean, to be fair, the offensive line should not have been getting dominated like it did today. But, I'm sure that's why we didn't run the ball as much. And the staff was like, crap, our offensive line's getting pushed around. We got to throw the ball a ton. But this team with Calandria getting rolled up on early on in the game, I just think you had to put the ball in Jet Thomas's hands more. And so, yeah, I mean, we should have scored more than 17 points. We should have scored 30 points. There's no way we should have scored under 30 points. It's unacceptable. Should we be worried about some breaking news this week regarding our staff or players leaving? I mean, yeah, you should. every team in college football outside of Ohio State, Alabama, um, a couple of more. Every team should be. There's Texas. I just think that that's just the name of the game. That's just the story that we have in college sports right now. So yeah, we should be worried. If Dan Mullen comes back, Anthony Calandria and Corey Dennis will be back. I don't know about Paul Gunther, and you're going to see some good UNLV players enter the transfer portal. But I don't think a lot of our guys on the defensive side of the ball are going to be in super high demand. And so I guess we'll see. A couple more comments here. Our defense let Ohio drag out drives and couldn't get a stop. Yeah, I mean, if you want to criticize the defense, it's that they allowed Ohio to have these super long, drawn out drives. Being this checked out scares me. Ohio played fundamental football and won the game. Gunther needs to walk home. Some of the plays on offense was questionable. Calandria's fumble and that turnover before the half gave Ohio belief. Yeah, I mean, it was really that first quarter. UNLV is the beneficiaries of two fumbles and can't cash in. And you can throw that on Calandria a little bit. I mean, he made some bad decisions and was sloppy with the ball tonight. And Calandria didn't play great football tonight. There's no doubt about that. Just dog football tonight. Yes, I agree. I wouldn't call the season a failure, but this bowl game was a damn failure. Yes, absolutely. This bowl game was a complete failure. And their effort, their execution, top to bottom, everybody should have their head pretty low after that performance. Every team that beat UNLV ran the football on them. The only teams that beat them, that bullied them, was Air Force and Miami of Ohio. Yeah, the Big 12 was drooling over UNLV watching this game. Yeah, man. I mean, you gotta think they have a plan here. I think if you're talking about a Big 12 dream, the only way that UNLV has a path to a power conference is if the ACC somehow kind of collapses but maintains its power conference status somehow. That's their only path. It's not to the Big 12. These power conferences are 18, 20, 16 teams. They're too big already. If they wanted UNLV, we'd already be in the conference. And certainly tonight was a good showing. Although, to be fair, guys, teams underperform in bowl games. This is not, UNLV is not the first team to show up to a bowl game. In fact, Ohio's won 7 straight bowl games. Teams coming out flat in bowl games, even pretty good teams coming out flat in bowl games, is not unheard of. It's not really unexpected. And again, you saw this UNLV team down a touchdown to Idaho State in the first quarter, in the fourth quarter of a football game this season. So if you think they were impervious to this type of performance, then you weren't watching. So couple more comments here. Calandria looked off tonight. I totally agree. Lulz, thank you, Jordan. Good to see you. Here's a couple of so disappointing. I agree. A couple of Oregon State fans in the chat. We got Jay. Jay's a good guy. I don't know that Oregon State's the program that should be talking right now. UNLV administration needs an overhaul. Should have joined the pack. Well, I agree with you there, but UNLV made their choice, and I'm gonna hope that it works out as best as it can for my school. And I'm going to support the guys and the team. It's going to be November 2026, and we're still going to be about how UNLV only had 2 starters 77 weeks ago. LOL, I kid, of course. The offensive calling was bad. Got to get that kid from Utah. I'm going to skip through some comments here because I got a lot of them. I want to make sure that I get to all of them. That this was embarrassing. We were unprepared, outcoached, and played soft. The piss poor ever. We show it should never be allowed again, ever. Well, I mean, it wasn't the first time UNLV came out soft with bad effort, being outcoached and unprepared this season. But good to see you, Bully. Appreciate you, brother. All right, a couple more comments here. Let me make sure. If you would have told me before the game that we'd have held into 17 points, I would have said, yeah, totally agree. We need to be far more physical at the line of scrimmage if we want to actually be taken seriously by the rest of the college football playoff world. P.S. You've done great all year, big dog. I've enjoyed watching. I appreciate you, man. Bully, great channel. Appreciate you. Hope everybody can subscribe to him. He puts out great USC and UNLV content. So I guess at this point, I'm going to, shout out. Thank you, Mario. I just hate it. ESPN exposure and a chance to look good with some of the big names in attendance, and we blew it. Yeah, I mean, it's an embarrassing performance tonight. It's totally true. But Bully brings up an interesting point, and what I would say is where does UNLV go from here? What's the future look like? What do they need to address? What do they need to get better at? And you are going to know this offseason how good UNLV football will be next season. Obviously, I mean, then we'll know what the roster is and we'll have an expectation based on the talent on the roster. But UNLV on the defensive line and on the offensive line was not good enough this season. They were outmuscled by so many teams, even teams that were worse than them. Teams that, go if you watch UNLV's offensive and defensive line performances against, Boise State in our 2 losses to them, and then this game against Ohio, and even really against New Mexico, UNLV does not have the size and athleticism necessary to be a great college football team on the defensive line and on the offensive line. This team is weak in the trenches. And good trenches, a good offensive line can help a guy like Anthony Calandria tonight, who was struggling, who was getting pressured, who Ohio was doing a very good job of keeping him from using his legs. That is something actually Ohio has been good at this season, preventing quarterbacks from scrambling against them. But UNLV needs to take offensive and defensive line talent seriously, more seriously. 70, in my opinion, like 50, 60, 70%, in between 50 and 70% of the team's NIL budget should go entirely to both the offensive and defensive line. I'd be spending money on receivers. I don't care. I don't care about receivers. I don't want to be spending money on running backs, frankly. Outside of Jet Thomas, I don't care about any of the running backs. And I think that running back is a position that if you have a good line, you can set up a good running back. I don't really care to be spending money on running backs. I don't really care to be spending money on, I guess safeties, maybe. I don't know. I mean, the DBs, the corners. I mean, middle linebackers, of course, is the most important position on the defense often. But I want to see the team spend more than half of its budget on its offensive and defensive line. That needs to be the absolute priority. Every dollar that you can spend on offensive line, even if it means you let a talented receiver go in the transfer portal, is a dollar well spent. This team gets pushed around too much. This team doesn't have the size, athleticism, strength that it needs to compete at a high enough level to achieve the goals that it has. And with the highest paid G5 coach in Dan Mullen, your goal should be the college football playoff, to be that team from the G5 that makes the college football playoff. Next season, you have a very favorable schedule as well, that UNLV could absolutely go 11-1, or 12-1, even 12-0. UNLV is capable of that next season, but it is not capable of that if they go, well, we're going to spend 60% of our budget on Anthony Calandria and Jet Thomas. 60% of our money for the entire team is going to go to those 2 players. That's not that can't be the solution here. It can't. The money has to go to the lines. It has to go to the offensive and defensive line. You have to spend as much money as you physically can. Dan Mullen needs to be out there fundraising, raising every dollar he can and saying, for every dollar I raise, I'm getting another pound of strength on the offensive and defensive line, because UNLV is not big enough. They're just not. They're not big enough. They're not strong enough. Certainly they're fast enough, but that's priority number one. Well, actually, I suppose you could also say priority number one is hiring a defensive coordinator, a real defensive coordinator that can recruit, that has a system, that has a philosophy, that's a teacher of the game of football. Because Paul Guenther, while he did in several games this season, did an admirable job, as a whole, just wasn't good enough on the year. Not a good enough teacher of the game. Not a good enough coach to get his guys to be in the correct positions to make the correct plays. And so your goals are offensive and defensive line, hire a defensive coordinator, hire a real one that has actual defensive principles and who can actually teach and get players to execute a scheme correctly and have an identity. I don't think this UNLV defense had an identity on the season. And I think the other thing you got to do is, I think Corey Dennis, if he's going to be our offensive coordinator next season, I think he has to go through a little bit of a boot camp with Dan. And I'm not saying he hasn't. I mean, Dan obviously talks to Corey, but UNLV threw away first down so many times on the season by just throwing go routes. And it wasn't an effective call for UNLV all season. And they were constantly putting themselves in rough positions in second and third down because they were not using first down correctly. UNLV did not emphasize the run game enough this season. And I know you might say UNLV was like a top 20 rushing attack on the season, and it wasn't enough. They needed to be more run oriented And honestly, I get that Dan Mullen likes to spread the ball around and give players a chance. But if you have a guy that, I think UNLV left rushing yards on the table this season by not utilizing Jet Thomas more. And if he's back next season, which I hope he is, he's a great player. Yeah, UNLV running back, kind of entering that UNLV running back pantheon he is, because he's just how long he's been here and how good of a player he's been. But I think UNLV needs to refocus and just clean up its offensive execution. And it starts with Corey Dennis. It starts with the recruiting and having another season of reps, having Anthony Calandria have another season, where he's not coming in, as the dual QB1 with Alex Orji, and you get a full off season with guys working together. I think you could build something pretty special going into next season. But this team needs more money. That's really kind of what this all comes down to. This team needs more money. It does. It needs more money from the school. It needs more investment. It needs a better staff. It needs a better NIL. It needs a better revenue share. This team needs a $5 to $10 million cash infusion. This program needs a 5 to 10. And it sucks to say, because UNLV is doing its best, I think, investing in football. But at the end of the day, it's money, man. That's what this team needs. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Spend it on the line and D. I totally agree. I just want to let you know I really love your show. Have a good perspective on UNLV athletics, as well as those when you talk about the Mountain West. I will always listen, at least. I appreciate you, Timothy. I appreciate you. I know we are down. The LOL was for the Big 12 comp. Oh, okay. Sorry, Jay. Hey, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty realistic about that. You don't get crazy takes from me about the Big 12 and UNLV. But I appreciate you, Jay. He's a good guy. One of the Beavs' problems is they spent on skill position. G5s need to spend on the lines. Yeah, you can't overspend on skill position players. You can't. I mean, sometimes a quarterback is probably the lone exception there, but you can't overspend on tight ends and wide receivers. You just can't. But Jack Matheson, I think the product on the field is going to continue to decline when players and coaches are so transient. Yeah, I mean, especially at the G5 level, our players and coaches just get poached, and it makes it really tough to build. The tight ends are rarely used too. I totally agree. Hey, you skipped over my comment, bro, in the live. It must have been too low IQ. I can go back and look for it. I'm going to go back and look for your comment, brother. I didn't see it. And sometimes they kind of scroll by really fast, but I'm going to try and find it, bro. Assuming you are a man, of course. Ryan Trujillo. I don't see your comment. If you want to comment it again right now, I will. I'd love to see it. But anyway, guys, good season. Not a great season. Not a season where the goals that we had at the beginning of the season were accomplished. But certainly, obviously not a bad showing. And listen, man, like, teams flub up their bowl games a lot. It just happens. Teams show up flat. They don't play well. And UNLV was yet another college football team that didn't take their bowl game seriously enough and didn't come out and didn't execute. Doesn't mean the program's bad. Doesn't mean the program's going down the tank. And honestly, the biggest thing this program needs is money. This needs money. And so we got to find some of those rich people in Vegas, maybe Dana White. If we could get one of those Saudi oil barons, that would be nice. I would love that. Let's get that Saudi money up in here. I know Brooks Koepka just left Live Golf. Maybe we could be you and Live B. You and Live V. I wouldn't be happy. Yeah, and Master Rebel makes a good point here. I wouldn't expect the changes on the staff until after Christmas. So yeah, guys are going to go home. They're going to kind of recalibrate. They're going to get home for Christmas. And then that's when they will make kind of their changes. But yeah, I mean, this is a good point. I would say UNLV played in 5 games. They played against 4 opponents, but 5 games where their opponents, or maybe 6 games where their opponents were not bad. They played 6 games where their opponents were not bad, and they went 2-4 in those games. And that was at Utah State and Hawaii, like I said earlier, and the Utah State game was kind of a crapshoot. I mean, I give them credit for winning the game, but at the same time, like that was a and the offense didn't really do as well as it could have done heading down the season either. I mean, UNLV's offense, I think, fell off a cliff a little bit. Not fell off a cliff, but fell off a little bit as the season went on. So, guys, it's been a fun year. I'm excited for the future of UNLV football. I can't wait for it. I'm very pumped about it. UNLV had a much larger attendance than Ohio. The only thing UNLV did that was better. Yeah, I agree. Hey, shout out to the people that were there. I hope they had fun. Um, keep bugging the casinos and local lawyers every chance you get on X. Yeah, maybe I will. I'm an attorney in Vegas, so maybe I can call up people like Knock V and West Coast trial lawyers, and maybe I'll give them all a call and I'll say, hey man, UNLV, right? You guys want to support UNLV? I mean, the Knights are so played out. What about UNLV? Maybe that's the play. And see, Jason. Yeah. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. All the PI attorneys in Vegas, I'm sure would love to be a part of a winner. And UNLV's been a winner, and even though it wasn't tonight. So guys, fun season. I will be live. I'll be talking UNLV sports. I'll be talking G5. I'll be talking college football. I've got a really fun video that I'm working on right now about whether the G5 should have its own playoff or whether they should continue to push to be a part of the college football playoff. A really fun video I'm working on right now. Excited to share it with you. It'll be better produced than anything I've ever worked on before. So hopefully I'll get it up this week before the games. I'll have some downtime. But guys, I appreciate you. Still a fun year. Teams show up and suck in their bowl games all the time. UNLV's not the first. They won't be the last. Disappointing. We got to get better. We need more money, better line play, better a defensive coordinator that doesn't suck. All those things are true. Better play calling, better execution, and we'll see if they can pull it off, and we'll know during the offseason. So guys, have a great night. Merry Christmas. Spend lots of time with your family, and let's run.